Greetings, everybody. Hello, hello. I am Dee. This is another of our Inclusive Agile Presents. This week, we are talking about scary ADHD symptoms in the office. Many of us here have ADHD, and we are super excited to kind of talk through some of the ways we can all help each other and how we have helped each other manage our ADHD symptoms. Before we get in, I wanted to do a very special thank you to Brandy. What was?
Hannah Strack.
Thank you, Hannah Strack. Thank you, Hannah. We got some feedback from Hannah to change the title of our event. And our review is feedback is welcome from everywhere. And as a group of white people, we ultimately just don't get to decide what's not or is or could be or should be. So we were so excited to get that feedback. Thank you so much, Hannah. We changed it to scary. And maybe we'll have some really cool conversation about the history of where spooky came from and how it became racist. But that's not what we're here for right now. What we're here for right now is ADHD.
Scariest.
Emphasis on the D.
So, Brett, introduce us.
Yes, absolutely. We are Inclusive Agile. We're a nonprofit consulting company bringing inclusion to the world of Agile. We teach Agilists to incorporate inclusion into their team's daily practice, as well as other groups to including Agile into their practices. We believe everyone deserves a safe space to do their best work. Psychological safety is the vision. The path to success is Agile. And inclusion, it's not HR's problem. It's not something that one group should be trying to fix. It is a whole company problem, and that means the whole company needs to be part of the solution. Now, as for me individually, my name's Brett Barker. I'm our VP of Learning and Development, and I am ADHD. I was diagnosed in my early 40s. I am also on the autism spectrum, was diagnosed a couple years after that. And looking forward to talking about this stuff today.
All right. I'm Brandy Berger. My pronouns are she, her. I am the Director of Operations here at Inclusive Agile, and I also have ADHD. I was diagnosed, it's been just about a year ago now.
And I'm Carissa.
You're Carissa.
We did this and we didn't pick an order in advance, folks. There's a peek behind the curtain. I'm Carissa Peck. I'm the Executive Director and CEO here at Inclusive Agile. And surprising absolutely no one but me, I was diagnosed with ADHD officially last year.
I'm Dee. I was diagnosed with ADHD about 3 years ago, in my late 30s. And surprising no one again. But also a really awesome, amazing thing because it all gave us understanding and tools.
But Dee, and maybe Brett and Brandy, it appears we all have ADHD.
Doesn't everybody have ADHD?
Isn't everyone a little ADHD?
I love this one. This is something that comes up at the office pretty regularly for me when I'm talking about some of the problems we're going to talk about. So as we go through the rest of these, you may say, well, that sounds like a normal experience. It is. A lot of these aren't experiences that we have that are completely new. What we're actually experiencing is a larger impact on who we are, how we see the world, and what we do than what is considered standard. So yes, a lot of these things as we go through, you're going to find that neurotypical people feel rejection when people tell them no. But the difference is how ADHD people may hold on to that, how it may actually influence the rest of their relationship sometimes. So that's going to be really, really excited. Thank you for bringing that up, Krissa. And can I get I'm going to use my magic wand to get, this is my magic wand. It's a skeleton. Please put up donations.
Absolutely. As you all know, Inclusive Agile is a nonprofit organization. Your support through donations allow us to continue hosting these events, creating content, and may even allow us to provide some of our services at a discount. So if you want to donate, please, you can scan this QR code down here at the bottom, or the one up here at the top should be here the rest of the show.
Thank you.
Fantastic. So I'm having some technical difficulties. I've changed internet sources. Hopefully I'll be able to stay on this time. We'll see. We have several topics that we wanted to go through today, things that we've encountered in the workplace with our ADHD, and also coping mechanisms and strategies that we've used to work with our ADHD in the workplace. So the title of this, we had talked about RSD, or Rejection Sensitive Dysphoria. So that is where we're going to start. Let me bring that up on the screen. And who wants to talk about this? Who wants to start here? Does anybody want to talk about the difference between being sensitive to feedback and rejection sensitive dysphoria?
Ooh.
Yes. I do, because I love
Go for it.
So me and Jack here, we'll handle it. So for the way I look at this is, yes, a lot of times rejection sensitive dysphoria is where something completely unrelated to whether or not I like you gets interpreted as an actual understanding if you like me or not, or I like you or not, based off of the rejection of something completely, sometimes random. So for example, my partner and I struggle, like everyone else, on deciding what we want to eat. And, in a moment of frustration, my partner says, I feel like I always decide. And that set me where I felt like I was not just, not helping with food, but a bad partner, and that she actually doesn't want to be with me. And it set me on a spiral, which, because I understood this, I could also pause and say, I get you're frustrated with the food thing, but do you still like me? At which we get to have a moment, we pause, maybe hug and kiss a little bit, and then we get to go back to the conversation, right? And we get to move forward still. That doesn't make it all go away, right? These are not feelings we choose to have, and we can talk ourselves out of them. Otherwise, we all would have done that years ago. But being able to talk through it and and open it up to someone else allows me to feel vulnerable enough to continue to move forward despite those feelings. What are some other experiences you guys have had?
I'll echo on the dinner decision. It's definitely a major issue in this house as well. And we've had some of those times where like if I make a suggestion that doesn't work for some reason or another, I deal with that rejection sensitivity. Like, oh, okay, you don't want to have what I suggested, and that means I'm not participating, not helping, and actually causing problems. And yeah, that does linger. Sorry, Brett, go ahead. What were you saying?
I'll go real quick. For me, one of the big ones, specifically in the workplace, is my previous job. And here I do a lot of training. I do a lot of one-on-one coaching and ask for a lot of feedback. And sometimes when I get some feedback that my course was not valuable, that they really thought it was wasting their time, even if 99% of the feedback is everything is awesome, everything's great, sometimes, and that's one of the aspects of this, is it's not constant, it's not all the time. Sometimes that feedback will affect me so strongly. I have had weekends where I will sit and just obsess about how my job is useless. I am useless. I provide no value to anyone, and I should just give up and not interact with society anymore. That's the level that this dysphoria can go, of minor stuff leading to I just want to stop existing.
Absolutely.
One of the things that I wanted to call out here, and this is a link to Attitude Magazine, fantastic resource for anybody who has ADHD or anyone who has, an ADHD loved one in their life. Rejection sensitive dysphoria it's a symptom that's lightly innate to ADHD. We're not talking about just feeling sensitive about rejection. There's a layer and a depth and a immenseness to how this feels for a person with ADHD that makes it a separate diagnosable condition. So I want to be really clear about that, because this took me a minute to understand as well, that this is not how everyone else feels. Pretty much it's an ADHD thing. So this level of sensitivity towards rejection, to where it takes over your brain, is a part of the emotional dysregulation that comes along with ADHD, and it's above and beyond your garden variety feelings of rejection or feelings of sadness. I want to tell a story. It's one of my favorite stories, and you guys can jump in because you were all here. This also gets us back to why is it important for teams, Agile teams, to understand neurodiversity and understand their teammates who might be ADHD or autistic or dyslexic or any other layer of neurodivergent. We were having a retrospective one day, and Dee brought up some points about how we had a lot of hidden work on our board, tasks that were getting done, but there was no visibility into them, and called out specifically a bunch of things that I was doing that were not on the board. And my brain started to shut down. I was quite sure. Go ahead, Dee.
And I was trying to talk about the amazing work and elevate and show the work that was being done, because we were at a moment where we were struggling just to kind of see how are we progressing. This was very early in what we were doing. So I was over here going, I am being such a good leader right now. I'm so excited. Everyone, we're gonna get the work on here. It's gonna look so good. And then Carissa,
I started to shut down in my brain. I started thinking, Dee hates me. Dee is bringing up this thing that we all need to do, but really they're trying to say it to me. Dee is trying to call Carissa out, but soften it for the group. And I was sure that I was the only one doing a bad here, and that I was being called out in front of the group, and that my life was over and I should just die now. I don't take that lightly, but I just go hide in a hole. And in most of my teams, when I start feeling things like that, I will just internalize it and just go try to do better. Someone on LinkedIn asked about perfectionism and how this is related. I would take that rejection sensitivity, that thing I felt rejected about, and just dig in deeper and try to be better and better and better so I would never get rejected again. However, we as a team are trying to practice what we preach and to bring these things to the surface. So in that retrospective, I said, hey, Dee, can we stop for a minute? This is how my brain took that information. Are you really calling me out specifically? Because then I need to know what I specifically need to do, or is this for the group?
And I want to lean on that for just a second, because I think that this has become an easy way out of giving hard feedback for a lot of leaders. Instead of coming to the person that actually needs a little bit of support in understanding that they're not meeting the expectations that you have for them, it's announced in the whole group. Let's remember to move our tickets to done. And the whole team's going, I know I do it every day. So this is really just about the one person that isn't. Except for the ADHD person going, oh, am I not moving them fast enough? Is this about me? What have I, it must be about me. So I have to figure out what I've done wrong here.
I gotta say, it was really beautiful to watch this interaction take place, because as another person with ADHD, I could see that Carissa was starting to shut down. And so I was super proud of her for bringing that up. And then the way Dee and everyone was able to handle the discussion from that place with the understanding of, oh, we are dealing with rejection sensitive dysphoria here. So we need to make sure that we're addressing it in a slightly different direction.
It was amazing. It felt incredibly validating, and it's easier for me now to bring that stuff up when it happens, because that one time everyone respected it.
Yeah.
Building that environment of safety.
Absolutely. Does anyone else want to talk a little bit more about other rejection sensitive dysphoria experiences before we move on to another topic?
I think one thing, not necessarily an experience, but that's really worth pointing and calling out, is the fact that this does go by invisible so often. The people that are dealing with the rejection sensitive dysphoria also are likely to not say something about it because they feel that the person who's talking hates them and wants them to just stop being around. And so it doesn't come up. And you are going to likely be interacting with people that are dealing with rejection sensitive dysphoria, and you might never know, but they are probably spending hours obsessing over casual comments that meant nothing.
Yeah, and I just want to bring in one of the comments in chat is this does fit in with autism as well. And that's absolutely true. It is definitely a comorbid with autism and ADHD. Brett can definitely attest to that.
I can attest. One of the things that I kind of recognized and has been showing up in my brain just from this conversation with the rejection sensitive dysphoria. When I was growing up as a autistic person who could mask really well, one of my coping mechanisms was if something went wrong once, I never, ever did it again. I wouldn't try. I wouldn't approach it. I would avoid it for the rest of my life. And there are many, many things that I am still avoiding because one thing went slightly wrong decades ago. And the type of thing that from what I'm understanding, the majority of the population would go, whatever, we'll try again tomorrow. Not something I'm so good at doing.
But that's why we're here to help.
And we're here to help. Rejection sensitive dysphoria is a part of emotional dysregulation, which is a hallmark and is a key to any ADHD diagnosis in adults, but it's not talked about because it's not really part of the DSM. But our ability to have the executive function to stop when something happens, process what's happening before we react is greatly diminished. So this is all part of the kind of emotional dysregulation aspects of ADHD, and we're not going to go into that pretty in any more depth here today. The next thing that we wanted to go into, and we'll probably weave in and out of symptoms as we do this, but our coping mechanisms that we each have used or we use as a team for ADHD. Before I move to that, though, because the slides are all now about coping mechanisms, was there any other? Let's talk about Matt's comment here really quick about conflict avoidance, and then the rest of the team. If there's other symptoms you guys want to talk about before we move into coping mechanisms, stop me.
Okay.
All right. So for Matthew Jones, this then feeds into conflict avoidance too. This sounds like what you were talking about, Brett. Do you want to give some more thoughts on that?
Yeah, that is a very, very accurate link to make. When you deal with rejection sensitive dysphoria a lot, any sort of conflict, even if it is negotiating what you're having for dinner, turns into a life or death fight for you in your brain. And your body is trying to react as if you're being attacked by a tiger, even though you're just discussing what color the background of the page is supposed to look like. So people dealing with this do often strongly avoid conflict because it is terrifying. It is physically hard to experience. And if the conflict goes one wrong way, you say something slightly incorrect because you're emotionally elevated, then you just got attacked by the tiger, and there is nothing you can do about it, and everything falls apart. So yeah, great comparison and association there.
I want to lean into something you just said there about our bodies, right? Because this isn't something where you just go, well, it's just all in your head. Well, yeah, it is. Our amygdala literally gets triggered. It's the actual structure for our defense that gets triggered during rejection sensitive dysphoria. So we become defensive, and sometimes we'll lash out, right? However we end up being defensive, it's important to recognize that this isn't, it's become very clear now that this isn't just something where people, it's not a, what did my parents used to, it's a trend, or it was trendy, ADHD, right? Recognizing those words and then like blaming myself instead of recognizing maybe my brain reacts to this stuff and I need tools to manage my brain's reaction rather than blaming myself for those reactions.
Even as a team, if you can just get to the point where you recognize this might be happening and give people a break to think before you move into a topic, can be hugely powerful, because it's about that space of that little space in between stimulus and response that the ADHD brain skips over, and you go right into fight or flight, as Brett mentioned and Dee mentioned, which I don't know if he said this out loud, that you go right into your amygdala. You get out of your prefrontal cortex. You're no longer processing with any sort of rationality. You are in your primitive brain trying to fight off a tiger, and it feels like that all through your body.
Absolutely.
So giving people a pause, just knowing this exists with your team, is a huge first step.
Absolutely.
On the physical sensation, I think moving to another symptom that some people, this ties into the whole everyone has ADHD thing. One of the most common symptoms of ADHD is the inability to focus, or the inability to start up work that you're not really excited for. And everyone goes, well, yeah, I can't focus sometimes. If it's something I don't want to do, obviously it takes me a little bit of effort and a little time before I can get started on that. And one of the things that I have been recognizing in myself as I've been looking for these things, when I've been avoiding work, when I've been getting to these points where I know I've got something to do, but I just can't get myself to do it, it hurts. It actually hurts. I get a pain in my head because my brain is fighting itself, and it really becomes a physical, painful issue for me when I'm trying to push through, my brain saying, don't do this.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So one of the coping mechanisms that we're talking about here is panic, actually as a coping mechanism, because that does tend to drive those of us with ADHD. I know that if I give myself a deadline, I can push that back and put it off. But if Carissa comes in and says, I need you to do this by tomorrow, even if I have just said, Carissa, tell me this is due at noon tomorrow, she says, I have to have this done by noon tomorrow, that triggers that panic sensation in my body that gives enough of the dopamine for me to stop putting it off.
Yeah, we've operationalized this. I love that word. We've operationalized this in our daily Agile practices, in our morning stand-up, our morning
Scrum.
What are we calling it? Scrum, stand-up, our morning meetings. We pick what we are committing to that day, and we treat that as a commitment. This is your deadline for things that it's not just the thing you're working on today. Tell me what you're committing to finish today, is where we go in our meetings. And to incite a little bit of that pressure in a good way, to capitalize on something that we know our brains are going to do anyway, and give ourselves a little bit of extra incentive to be able to do that. We have some background noise. I'm not sure which one of us that is right now.
That was me. I apologize.
Is that you? Okay. Anybody else want to talk a little bit more about how we operationalize panic through commitments before we move on to a different topic?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes. I want to add on the second thing that we started, which is recognizing a superpower that we have as a team. And that superpower on our team is that we're really, really good at helping each other. We're not so great at helping ourselves sometimes. And so we would make those commitments, but it would include the recognition that if you weren't going to meet that commitment, it's still a big deal. We're not going to hate you for it, but you should tell us as soon as you can, because we may be able to make up that distance. We may be able to come in and help that commitment get made. So you get to feel like, actually, this is going really well. And what's interesting is I always was so scared of handoffs like that, right? I always thought that if I had to hand off work, someone was just going to be so mad. But doing it here, it's become really clear how easy it makes everything else. And I go, you know what? I'm struggling to start this email. Can you just get something going for me? And in the morning, I'll hammer it to make sure we meet the commitment. And now it takes me 10 minutes to craft an email because someone's gone through and helped me create a structure, or just given me that start that I know I can then continue. So that's the other thing that I feel like we do well.
Absolutely.
Perfect. We are about halfway through right now. And as we are halfway through, I want to remind our audience that we are a nonprofit and that we do, sorry, I just lost my screen. Anyway, sorry. We exist partially on donations. Any donations that we receive are used to fund our programs and specifically to help companies and individuals who would not be able to afford our coaching and our programs on their own. That is where we funnel any donations that we receive. So very thankful in the past for several donations that we've gotten on these live streams, and we're going to be putting that all to very good work. All right. Before we move on,
Thank you.
yeah, I think we have maybe a saw going. I wanted to continue with the idea, or with the thought that Dee had brought up, or that we're talking about the using panic to help operationalize. Dee had saw noises in order to be scary, and I ruined it by not being addressing it appropriately. Another tool that kind of think plays right along into that is something called having a rubber duck. And this is something that in software engineering we talk about a lot, but the idea behind a rubber duck is you need someone to say an idea out loud to. You need to have someone or something sitting there. It could be simple as an actual rubber duck, or another person who's just sitting there listening to you talk about your ideas to help you get unstuck. Who would like to share a experience that they've had with this?
I absolutely will. I have found oftentimes myself getting stuck, like Dee mentioned, trying to start a document. It's extremely hard for some reason. But I use my cats as rubber ducks. And if I can sit the cat here and explain to her what I need to happen in this document, that block just disappears. This same kind of process is often referred to as soundboarding. It makes such an incredible difference.
Now, two here that this duck is really terrifying. So it would be a really good rubber duck, because if you tell it the wrong things, it's going to eat you.
Yeah,
I did ask AI to give me some zombie rubber ducks, and this was part of the results. So that's why this duck is terrifying. Is AI thinks it looks like a zombie rubber duck.
I think it's really close, right? Like it's got the arms out.
Mhm.
Messed up eyes. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's about to eat your brains.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Bah. Beautiful. I want to go to the next topic. Could we talk about square rabbits?
Square rabbits, absolutely. Let's go talk about square rabbits.
I'm already squirreling over to the square rabbits.
We did not do a slide for square rabbits, but we did do a slide for
the
a solution. Okay, let's talk about square rabbits. Go ahead, talk about square rabbits, and this is one of our solutions to that.
Can I define square rabbits?
Yes,
please.
That is absolutely our term. Square rabbits are those squirrels that trigger ADHD sidetracking that turn into rabbit holes. I have had square rabbits take me all day to come back to where I am. So that's our definition of square rabbit. It's a squirrel that takes you down a rabbit hole.
And I want to like this is like the source of 90% of my rejection sensitivity disorder, right? Is that I'm having a conversation with someone that I think is really, really important, and my brain goes, "But what about this?" And I go, "Okay, let me talk about this for a second." And then I go, "I know I'm on a tangent. Let me try and pull myself back." But my brain's going, "I don't think so. This is really important. Let's keep doing that." And then it forgets what we were initially talking about. And so I get feedback of like, you get distracted easily, right? And I discovered this parking lot just in the standard kind of agile approaches. When you're in a large group that's doing a whole bunch of ideation, people will come up with things that you think are really, really incredible, but not really focused on the kind of moment at the time. Creating a parking lot allows you to recognize we're going to touch those later. We're going to come back to those, but right now we need to zero back in on this. And I realized that's pretty much my brain is doing all the time. It's a group of people trying to come up with ideas all the time. And so if I can help them see, we'll come back to that later, right? I see it literally on a list of things in the parking lot. Cool. We'll talk about that later. We'll come back. And it also helps me recognize, because I have memory issues from trauma, that I'll be able to remember what it was. And that's a huge, huge deal for me. Because I'll come up with, some really cool things and I'll start talking about them. And then later we'll go, okay, what were we talking about? Again, I want to talk about that. And we can't come back to it. And then I feel guilty again, because my brain doesn't work the way I want it to.
Oh, absolutely. I have sticky notes plastered around my second monitor here this is my parking lot.
Yeah, my parking lot winds up being my bullet journal.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I wind up, the way I keep myself from running down a rabbit hole is just to write it down. And to know that it's somewhere I can come back to it, right? We've got Matt Jones in the chat again.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you. Can I call you Matt? I keep calling you Matt. Matt. I've never actually met Matt, but he's been a great supporter of our work over the last few months. Parking lots are great for retros and conversations in Agile, just in general. Helping the team understand that we have a place to capture all of these beautiful things you're saying, and we also need to stay on track for this one problem we're trying to solve. This retro topic, this what planning meeting that we're in. Let's not get down a rabbit hole of trying to build the new product when we're in retrospective mode. So having a parking lot that people can see and it's visible is really important. Absolutely. I want to point out that the person who made this image did this on purpose to make it look like a graveyard because
it's scary day?
Because it's scary day. And also because I think sometimes these ideas seem, they can go into the parking lot and die. If nobody wants to come back and resurrect them, they really probably weren't all that important to begin with.
Mhm.
So understanding that the parking lot might also be a cemetery is a good thing. You have it there to get back to. And if you never bring those ideas back out of the parking lot, it's because you didn't need them, not because you sent them off to die in a bad way somewhere. And it's really okay to let that go.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
I think that's a
Absolutely.
really good call out in the Agile experiences and just in conversations. We don't have to come back to everything. Though ADHD people, we really we start
We
popping
want
stuff
to.
on the stack. Like, wait, I have something to say here. It's still on the stack.
And really learning to acknowledge people on your team that need to get these ideas out. And this isn't oh, that's nice, so and so. I know you have these ideas. Let me just give you a parking lot so you can write things down. I'm talking about the opposite of that. I'm talking about genuinely recognizing that people have great ideas and that you want to capture them, but you also have to keep the team on track with whatever it is you're doing right now. So honoring them, making sure you're capturing the ideas in a way that honors and respects the idea and keeps the team moving forward is not easy. And this is one tool to help start down that path if used well.
Absolutely. I just want to appreciate the wording you used there. Respect is such an important part of all of these coping mechanisms, and understanding that your people are struggling and these are simply tools that they're trying to use to cope.
For sure. You guys ready to move on to another topic?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Lead us, guide us.
All right. Let's talk about the hourglass. Brett, you want to take us away on this one?
Absolutely. So I am a little obsessed with hourglasses. It's one of my autism obsessions for my entire life. If you can't see, this whole shelf is at least a dozen hourglasses. I have them all over the house. I've got 3 or 4 on my desk right now. But hourglasses for focus is a method that works really, really well for me. One of my biggest ADHD issues is that ability to focus on a task. Get started on the task is actually the hardest thing. Once I get started, it's honestly not that big of a deal most of the time. So a lot of people suggest, well, you just put a timer on your computer. There are all sorts of apps out there where you put on the little clock thing and it'll count down 15 minutes for you. But those never worked for me because I kept looking at the 15 minutes. Oh, it's 14 minutes now. Now it's 12 minutes, 30 seconds. I'm almost there. I can finish soon. And then most of the time, when it's done, you get a large annoying beep that says, hey, you can stop now. And that can be distracting. It can pull focus. If you are in the zone, you're in the flow, and something screams at your ear and says, hey, stop working, you're going to get disrupted. And so it's problematic that way. So I tried timers for a while and it didn't do any good. And then I saw a group that was making hourglasses for productivity. And so this is the one that I use primarily. It's manufactured specifically for this purpose. And the benefits from it is I get to do something physical, which is really, really helpful to start things off. I have a mental muscle memory ritual that when I pick up this hourglass, I turn it over, I shake it a couple times, I don't know why, and then I set it down. That means it's time to work. And my brain engages. I stop paying attention to a lot of the distractions. A lot of those things just kind of fade away because I have followed my starting ritual. And then the biggest difference, well, not the biggest difference, one of the major differences, I don't have a number to look at. When I need to see about how much longer I have, I glance over casually and I've got an estimate somewhere between X minutes and X minutes. This one's a 25-minute timer. It works out really well for that. And so I don't spend so much time counting down the numbers. And then when my time's done, nothing interrupts me. It just finishes. And the next time I look over, I'm like, okay, I need to stop focusing. My brain's saying, stop, look over. Oh, hey, my timer's done. I can stop now and then move on to something else. And the thing that I found almost every single time I do this is I start my timer and then I work for an hour because I just needed to get started. And I will look over and go, my timer's been done forever, but I feel good about this right now. I'm just going to keep going.
And I want to say, like, it's not just like that hump of getting started, right? Like, I don't know how to start the email. I don't know how to start the doc. it's even if you're halfway into work and you need to come back to it, it's that idea that your amygdala is going, you're not ready, we're not going to work, this isn't going to do any good. And so when you give it the knowledge that you only have a short amount of time you have to do this, right?
Yeah.
That you get to be done in just 25 minutes. I can do anything almost for 25 minutes, right?
Absolutely.
So knowing it's going to be done is huge. I love the timer idea, and I've always used timers, but then that, even though I'm in the flow, they'll make that loud noise and I'll be like, okay, cool, time to be done, right? Which isn't actually helpful, right? The goal is getting into that flow and staying there as long as you feel like it's valuable to you. So I have a question. Do they have one of these as like an alarm clock? not to not wake me up, mostly, but to like that I have that same problem as I sleep, right? I wake up 4 times a night on average. And I would love to be able to just look over and see, I've got maybe half the night still left. So I think I'm going to have to give myself some pretty cool, some nice hourglasses from here on out.
Yeah, when we're done here, I'll send you over to my favorite hourglass provider. He might have some 8-hour ones.
And you notice Brett is familiar enough with this hourglass provider to know their pronouns, and it's not they, it's not a group, it's he.
I've been following his work for years.
I want to say thanks to, I can't see who the LinkedIn user is, unfortunately, right now, but yeah, getting started is so hard. Just getting yourself over that hump of, I need to start into something. I have all sorts of little rituals that I have to do that. One thing that I learned pretty recently from a fellow LinkedIn creator, Amanda Stern, she's a journaling coach, something called interstitial journaling, where you write down the one thing that you're about to do. You go do just the one thing, and you don't move on until you've written down how it went. So you've got, and I've adapted it a little bit to help me with my time management. So I'll write down an estimate of how long I think this one thing is going to take. Give myself either a Pomodoro, Matthew mentioned Pomodoro technique again in the chat, or some time box or something. I'll guess or give myself a goal for how much time, write down the title, and then I will come back to it and talk about how well I did on my time management and how the task went before moving to the next thing. So that gives me a one-line thing to focus on instead of my list, my massive list of all of the things that are in my backlog.
Those lists can be so intimidating.
You can. So you're narrowing it down to the one thing, and you don't move on until you're really done and you feel like you've even closed the loop on how did it go. You've done your teeny tiny retro on that one item before you move on to the next one.
I want to, that is so beautiful because, and something that I'm just kind of just like understanding a little bit better is, that recognition is really, really cool. Thank you for that, Chris.
Absolutely. Okay, should we move on to our last concept?
Let me respond to Matthew real quick.
Matthew had a question here.
Yeah, asking about the ritual helps with experiencing path demand avoidance. Yes, 100%. One of the other things I love about this particular hourglass is that the sand is actually steel balls, so it has a heft to it. And so feeling it, touching it, moving it, it just allows my brain to completely redirect, refocus. There are days that I will have spent like seriously hours avoiding doing a task, not making any actual work. And then remember, because one of the other issues about ADHD is if not a lot of object permanence. So when I remember, oh yeah, I have a hourglass that I can do this with, I pick it up, do my stupid ritual, and I can just get started on something that I have been absolutely avoiding. So definition for what this is, the basically pattern which people go to extremes to ignore or avoid anything that they perceive as a demand, something that they have to do. And they will just fight and kick back and say, nope, 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 I'm not going to do that. And this process really, really helps me a lot with that. It's honestly annoying when I finally go, oh yeah, I've got the hourglass, pick it up, start working, and then I'm golden.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the last one now.
Let's move on to the last one. The last one is body doubles or body doubling, which I did body snatchers these for this one. Would like to describe what body doubling is?
I want to.
Okay, go ahead.
Thanks. So body doubling, and I've started to recognize this with a couple of my kids who have been diagnosed as well, is just this idea that you can get work done better if there's just someone in the room. It's ridiculous. They don't need to be helping you, and in fact, sometimes that makes it worse. But if you have the presence of someone else in the room, it becomes so much easier to somehow focus. And it's been amazing in recognizing it with my kids, in that I loved music. I played percussion, mostly the keyboard instruments. It was awesome, but I was terrible at practicing. But I wanted to practice more. But going and practicing at the school by myself, there was no way. So with my kids, my son's does the viola. He says, "Can you come up so I can practice?" And so I go up into his room and he practices while I play my Switch, or read a book or do some work. And just that presence allows him to focus and be able to get it done and do the thing he wants to do.
It's like a really great physical reminder that you are supposed to be focusing. Much like Brett's hourglass, actually.
That's a good point. It is. It's almost like a guilty. They know I'm supposed to be working, so if I stop, they'll know.
Yeah, exactly. I get more panic.
And this even works great for virtual teams and remote teams.
Yes.
Being on a call with each other and each working on your own separate things, you can still body double with a remote team. This is not something where you have to have somebody physically in your space. I personally think it works better if cameras are on, but I think teams could probably also do it camera off. You're just giving your brain one more little hook to stay in the moment, to stay mindful of what you're supposed to be doing, so that you have one less avenue of running off into another direction.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Okay, we are just about done for the day. I wanted to make sure if there's anybody watching and listening have any questions or thoughts or comments, get those in now. And I wanted to open it back up out to our team. We didn't talk about everything that we've each individually ever done for ADHD. And this is a surprise question. I didn't prep you all for this, but looking back, can you point out something that you did in your life that you know was the thing you did to work around your ADHD before you knew you had ADHD?
Ooh.
If you guys need to think, I can come up with them. But go ahead, Dee. Go ahead.
Fidgeting. See, I got my fidget skeleton today, so I can fidget and have a good time with it. But before that, right, I would fidget with everything. And another piece of my rejection sensitivity area there was just, don't do that. Stop doing that. Stop shaking your leg. Stop clicking the thing. Don't do that. You're bugging me. Right?
Oh my gosh, shaking your leg.
And like then all I have is panic. So then I found silent ways to manage it. And so some of the things I would do is I would just rip up a plastic bag slowly and surely, or paper. Sometimes I'd then eat it, but I think it's something else. It's probably just from being dropped on my head or something.
Yeah, I absolutely. The leg shaking is something I have done constantly since I was little, and playing with my hair. I was told very often growing up that I needed to stop playing with my hair or I was going to go bald. because I cannot keep my hands away from it unless they're occupied with something else. I also, something I picked up from my mother, who is undiagnosed, but really pretty sure she has ADHD. We crochet while watching TV because our hands cannot sit still.
For me, it's making messes because of my object permanence issue. If I don't have things visible in front of me, I do not remember they exist. And so for my entire life since I was a kid, drove my mom crazy. I had to have all my toys out on the floor so that I knew they were there. My office, I have to overhaul my desk every few months just because it gets inundated and covered with things that I need to have visible, like my 20 fidget things that I just pulled out. So that it's when I recognized later in life that I had been doing forever to deal with the object permanence issues.
Yeah, mine has got to be just lists and lists and lists and lists and lists and lists, right? Just writing everything down, sorting and organizing things into lists over and over again to try to keep things organized because I can't do it internally. And at one point, I think I don't remember which doctor it was I said, I can't be ADHD. Look how organized I am. I don't leave all of my stuff out like Brett's describing. Look how organized I am. And the doctor's like, Carissa, you have to be that organized because you're ADHD.
And I think that's a really good point to say everyone with ADHD, much like they say with autism, it's unique. It's different. My wife and I, both ADHD and extremely different. We almost don't have any of the same symptoms. We have a couple that overlap, but most of the things we deal with are completely different.
I disagree. I'd say we have a lot of the same symptoms, not the same coping mechanisms and the way we handle them.
That's where I was just going to go too, is that like a lot of these things are really just the first time we were able to manage this panic successfully. And our brain goes, cool, shortcut. Thank you. Yes. Thank you for that shortcut. So for Krista, for you, it was lists, right? Randy, my understanding is you just do it. Like
I do.
It's done. Right? Brett, what do you do?
Procrastinate.
Video games, right? Like that's the thing I would do, because now I have you know, many video games are really just chore management tools, really. So right. So now I've got a list of chores and I know how to do them one by one. There's a map. And so I get all that feeling like I'm doing well despite not actually getting the things done I want to get done.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love that. Go ahead.
Just a new one I've discovered that works for me recently. I am working 2 jobs in the same office space, both from my home office and our work office. Both of my jobs are in the same building, just down the hall from each other. So I found task switching can be really difficult when I'm moving from one organization's stuff to the other. And so physically moving myself from one office down the hall to the other, or if I'm working at home, I've found that if I just walk down to the kitchen, stomp around for a minute and come back, it tricks my brain into going, okay, yeah, we're working for this company now. This is what we're doing, and can get going like that.
Just on my way to work.
Yeah.
Traffic's really bad these days.
For our last few minutes, do we have anything from our viewers? Any questions, any thoughts, any coping mechanisms you've used or seen? And please post after the live stream's done if you come to get this later. We would love to hear what other people have done, what other things have worked for them, because I'm always looking for better options.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I learned stuff today. This has been beautiful.
And I'm expecting everyone's going to go buy hourglasses in the next little while.
Go buy hourglasses. And my final thought on this would be, is if you think that you might be ADHD, you probably are. I mean, like, go dig into that. Talk to people, learn more about it. It's same with autism, same with some of the other neurodivergent. I'm not as well versed in what it looks like to be dyslexic, for example, right? But there's all these other like layers of neurodivergence. It's not just ADHD and autism. But if you feel like your brain is processing things differently than the people around you, don't just think that it's a weakness and that you can just try harder. Get some help. Learn.
I think that's the best part about self-diagnosis, right? I would love to help you put a shoe on a doll. Just 1 second. So, hey, ADHD in parenting. So my son, my youngest, loves dolls. So I love that because it's not a matter of self-diagnosing so you have a good excuse.
Yeah.
Right? So you have something to point to and say, you shouldn't be mad at me, I have ADHD. Right? It's that it comes with a package of tools, a package of understanding that you can then just point other people to as well. Hey, this may be why I behave this way, and here's some coping mechanisms we can use. Do you want to try that? I may not have ADHD, but these coping mechanisms seem like they're really great. And I want to bring that all the way back to the beginning. All of these things are things everyone experiences. When you get diagnosed with ADHD, it's about how much impact these things actually have in your life. How big are they? How can you manage them? And if you can't, cool. Now you have a community, you have people, you have TikTok. Don't trust everything you read on TikTok, but I learned a lot about my ADHD there, and it was kind of magic.
Absolutely. In fact, I'd like to take this last couple of minutes, surprise everyone. And if you have someone you want to shout out that has helped you in learning about your ADHD. For me personally, there is a TikTok, Facebook couple that goes by ADHD Love that does regular videos, and she has ADHD. He is neurotypical, and they're just beautiful videos about how he supports her and how they make life work like that. So they've been very helpful for me. Who else has some?
Ooh, there's the How to ADHD channel.
How to ADHD.
How to ADHD is extremely good, well produced, digestible chunks of information. Attitude Magazine, who I mentioned earlier, has beautiful long form content of experts talking about different topics on ADHD. Those are extremely good. You can get all of those on YouTube for free. So much great information there.
Absolutely.
Mine's Dave Thompson, someone that we've worked with before. It's come on. We've been able to do some interviews with them, and also just been a really huge support of ours and of mine personally. Just really kind and would be willing to go, hey, maybe this is what's going on, and it's okay.
And no, I don't, unfortunately. I avoid social media. I'm not very good at that kind of online interaction stuff. So I mostly just read articles.
As we close out, I'm just going to flip that back on to Brett and say that if somebody needs help with their ADHD or autism diagnosis, Brett does do coaching, and does do coaching for leaders to help them be able to work with their neurodivergent team members more effectively. Specifically, ADHD and autism are the expertise and the focus that we have on this team. So yeah, Brett can be your somebody that helps you with these things. All right. So that's all we have for today. Again, please donate if you support our work.
One more thing I want to do. I realized this is the shout out, not shout out, but the thing I want everyone to understand and hear people with ADHD, people without ADHD. And that's primarily the people with ADHD. When you hit the wall, when you're trying to do something and your brain says stop. It's not worth it. It is not worth trying to keep pushing through. It will burn you out for longer than you would have otherwise. And then for everyone else, recognize that that is something that needs to happen. For the managers that have people that are dealing with ADHD, they need to be able to stop. There is a good chance that they will pick it back up later. Sometimes it'll be outside of work hours. They're going to get it done, but they need to do it when their brain will allow them. So the biggest accommodation, the biggest thing that I have found for ADHD people that makes their lives tenfold better at work is just the ability to do the work when they can and not be locked down to that 9 to 5. You have to get the work accomplished in this time frame. You have to have it done in these specific chunks. Allow that ability to control some of that.
I like to say continuing when you need to be done is a whole lot like driving with your emergency brake on. Like
Absolutely.
You'll get to where you need to go, but you're not going to get there in a good condition.
Causing damage the whole way.
You
And the
smell
biggest reason why I'm talking about this is because I suck at it still. And other people to do it, the more I feel guilty when I'm doing it, and so I try not to do it as much. So thank everyone for hearing me talk about this. It's really for my own benefit.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us for this. We are going to sign off now. And again, we are Inclusive Agile. You can scan to donate to help us continue our work, and visit us at inclusiveagile.io or reach out to any one of us on LinkedIn if you'd like to sit down and talk about what we can do for your company. Thanks so much.
Thanks, everyone.